Testing, testing, testing. Just music down a little bit. Hello. Can you hear me okay? Hopefully. Wait, no, now you're gone, whoever you were. No, I'll wait and see if we can get a couple more people. Anybody. All right, well, in case anybody watches this later, I'm setting out all the figures that I'm going to be opening. I kind of forgot to count how many I got, but it's quite a few because it's the entire first wave, or not first wave, but I guess first line of the what's known as the red card Power of the Force action figures. Can you hear me okay? Who's ever watching? Just want to make sure my mic's working so I'm not talking to nobody. Cool. Okay, so to my one viewer right now, I have, where'd it go? I'm going to save those two for later. See if my roommate can turn the music down. Okay. Let me know if the background music I have is too loud or even noticeable. All right, so what I have today is the Power of the Force, what's known as the red card wave. It was the very first wave that kind of kicked off the Star Wars figures coming back after the original figures from the 70s and 80s came out. These were released on July 1995 is when they started. And I think they kind of did them in waves. They were the main characters for like the first 6 figures or something, and then more so. And these were still released under the Kenner brand, even though by that point, Hasbro actually had bought out Kenner and they owned them. But Kenner still did the Star Wars figures, and they were, I don't want to know if they were, don't really know if they were successful or not. But what happened is they made a lot of these, and a lot of people kept them packaged and still on their cards and not open because they thought they would be worth thousands of dollars, like the toys from the 70s and 80s. And since so many people kept them and didn't open them, and there were so many produced of them, they just didn't hold that same value. They're worth an okay amount of money right now. I personally wouldn't spend more than $10 on any of them, even if they're on card and if they're in really good condition. If they're loose, they're worth less than $5 each. Depends upon how well played with and if they've got all their stuff. And then people are always trying to sell them on like Facebook or Amazon for a stupid amount of money. And there's really only one figure that's worth any amount of money from this line. The other thing was this wave and the other Power of the Force figures came with a lot of variations. I'm not opening up every variation just because, simply put, some of them are all having to do with numbers, like the number on the proof of purchase or the number next to the figure itself or spelling errors on the card. Since I'm opening them, I didn't really think card variations mattered that much. But inside of them, there are more physical variations. Dealing with the most common ones are these accessories. As you can see, several of them have um, lightsaber sizes that are different. This is a Ben Kenobi with a long lightsaber and a long tray, and a Ben Kenobi in a short lightsaber and a short tray. And several of these characters have these kind of variations. There's also a couple that are additionally cosmetic, and I'll talk about those when I get to them. But it's really tough to find a full, like, comprehensive list of a lot of these and what all variations exist. So I had originally planned on trying to find all the variations, but there was just not a good enough list out there that I can compare and make sure that I actually had all of them. So I just went with some of the variations that I managed to track down, and then at least one release of everybody. So I figured keep it simple that way. Let's see. The other thing about them is, don't know if you noticed, but these guys are all super buff. I tried finding out if anybody really had like a reason why, but seems like the general consensus is it was all just deemed what was kind of popular at the time, with 90s action heroes all being, Bruce Willis, tough muscle guys. So they thought that that was going to be the only type of action figures that boys would want to play with, especially after like He-Man sold so well in the late 80s. So that's kind of why these got that treatment. It didn't really last too long. Come by the what's called the green card wave, they started doing away with them. Well, the green card wave was all mostly repackages of these. I want to say it was more the wave after the Power of the Force, when they did Power of the Jedi, was when they started making them more normal builds. So that's what I got. I don't know, some 30-some figures here. These are also the toys that I've spoken on these before, because I talked about how like this R2D2 was one of my first action figures that I ever got, and I had to have been 4 or 5 when I got it. So this is kind of the line that I really wanted, or got me into collecting, and I have several of these in a like action figure carrying case somewhere in storage of all my original ones. And that's why these kind of have the appeal of vintage to me, and they're easy to get a whole collection of since they're still relatively cheap. And I actually bought, I want to say, 90% of these off of, I don't know, eBay or something. That was just one complete lot of just kind of beat up cards. So as you can see, they've got like creases in some of the folds. The bubbles aren't exactly great shape. They've got dents. So I'm not opening, purely great mint action figures for this. I wanted to kind of keep it simple of stuff that was going to be openers anyway, so that way I'm not, diminishing value. Okay, let me adjust my camera. Oh. Okay. All right, that'll do. All right, I don't even know where to start. Well, since I've talked about it a lot, let's just go ahead and do this R2D2. Like I said, one of the very first action figures I ever got. This one's, I think, was in collection 1. These were kind of fun because also when I was a kid, they had these little info cards on the back that you could just cut out and keep, and they had a large blurb. And also you could still see like all the different stuff you could get, Star Wars Fan Club, all the other figures in the wave, vehicles, which I kind of miss that a lot of the toys these days don't have a lot of that. Like, collect them all, see who else you can get. So that's something I kind of remember fondly. And you got Kenner's old logo, proof purchase, the usual stuff. And the front was kind of boring compared to some releases that we get these days. I think my favorite packaging is still the 30th anniversary wave, where it was a nice mix of cool design and artwork. But this one's okay, very bare bones. But let's see. Now my old R2 is dirty and the joints are all loose, so getting one that's not in bad shape is going to be kind of a weird sensation. Let's see. Here we go. Yeah, that's weird. Because my old R2, you could just swing him and the legs would just go all over the place. Not much for play features for this, guys. But there was a thing where you could shine a light. I'm trying to do it with the light I have. Let me do it with my phone. You can kind of see that when you shine a light through the top of his dome, it was translucent, so it would make it look like his eye was lighting up. And that was about it. And then I think the head spun for the leg to move. Maybe not. I can't remember. Maybe it just there's something that would let it move. Oh, I guess it just popped right up there. Okay, I thought the head spun around and then he would hold still, but nope, the leg just pops up and then there's a thing on the back to help you pull his leg out. Yeah, this one's still pretty white. I feel like it's not gotten too much sun damage from wherever it was sitting. This was one of the ones that I needed to get separately from the wave I got. This is also back when they still did chrome too. They've stepped away from that now. A lot of the new R2 and C3PO figures do not have this gold, or sorry, not this chrome paint along the top, which, you know, it's just kind of a classic. Like, this kind of makes it still my favorite R2, not just from nostalgia, but from still having that dome and it's, you know, simplistic. I think the middle leg could be better and is probably what's stopping it from being great, just because he doesn't quite sit right. He also doesn't have wheels on the bottom either, so he can't roll around or anything. He's just kind of, you know, there. But still, not bad. Now, Carlos was asking how the paint is. Paint's, you know, pretty good for a 90s toy. I don't have any R2s nearby, unfortunately, other than a 6-inch line, so I got nothing I can compare them with. But, you know, I feel like if anything out of the 90s, like, this was a good R2 that was actually worthwhile. And yeah, it's kind of cool seeing just like a mint condition one, just compared to how bad my old one was. I should have dug my old ones out so that way I could show you how beat up and well played with they were. I think I'm definitely going to keep these and probably cut out these little info cards too. I know I've got the ones that I had from when I was a kid, but I definitely want to save these as well. Do the variations cause the price to be different? Yes, for some of them makes them a little bit more valuable, but a lot of them are just kind of the same cost. There's not too much of a difference. Let's actually look at somebody who has a variant. Well, we'll just do Obi-Wan because he's right here and we can do both of them. So this one's the short tray Obi-Wan, or sorry, the short lightsaber and short tray. That's the only difference. He's just got a different sized lightsaber. Same thing on the back. You got your info card and all of the guys you can get. And then, yeah, some of the other variances are these numbers down here, which I'm not sure how well you can see. Trying to find it on the camera. But this one says a 0.01. Some of them end in 0.02 or 0.03. And that is what some people will go out of their way to collect. It's because some of the numbers at the end of this is different, and that means they want to get it. But like I said, I didn't want to get those for this unboxing because I'm just opening up these figures, so it doesn't really matter what the differences in the cards are. This was another one I had when I was a kid. I had Obi-Wan. And the one I had, I think, ended up in the pool with me at some point. You know, because Obi-Wan went to some water worlds on his adventures. And unfortunately, the chlorine just damaged the heck out of him, so he was very bleached. Let's see. All right, here is Obi-Wan. Let's move more towards the light so you can see a little bit better. So, not much good here. This clearly doesn't really look a whole lot like Alec Guinness. This robe, which is removable, and was the only way you get him to fit in that land speeder, if you saw on the back, because he could not sit in there with it. And then, yeah, the different sized lightsaber, which he could only hold one-handed, because this was before they started using the two-handed bolts or any kind of articulation. These were all very early 90s articulation, not even G.I. Joe level of articulation. So no knee bends, just thigh, shoulder, and head. That was it. That was all you guys could do. So very basic by today's terms. And that's it. That's the only difference between him. And let's look at the long lightsaber version of him. Which again also has the background. And this one's a 0.1 and info card, all that same stuff. Join the fan club, which I don't think even exists anymore, unfortunately. Which version I had? A lot of my old figures I definitely lost all of the accessories for, so I don't even know which size lightsaber I had for my Obi-Wan, but here's kind of the size difference. As you can see, the long lightsaber is quite a bit longer than the short one. Faces are the same, articulation is the same. This is just, yeah, that's the only difference, just the long and the short lightsabers. Carlos asks, he considers me an action figure expert. I'm far from it, but thank you. Is there like an epic era where the paint job and quality was beyond amazing, has been better over the years, we'll say specifically across Star Wars models? I would still say during the 30th anniversary collection, which was released in 2007, is personally my favorite due to design and quality. You could get a lot of different characters from a lot of the different movies. The articulation was good. A lot of the paint job was good. And you got good characters, obscure like background characters, like all these different guys. It was really nice time, and you could find the collection, like the action figures. Like now it's kind of hard to find anything, which was the other great thing about this way or this line is back in the day, if you ever went down the toy aisle in the 90s, was the big display in the front was always reserved. Okay, well, the other thing is these guys can't stand worth a damn. The other thing was the front display to the toy aisle was always the big summer blockbuster that had toys. So if you remember like Jurassic Park, Godzilla, Independence Day, Star Wars, all had these huge displays in the front of the toy aisle. Well, you would see just rows of toys and all the different things, the vehicles, the action figures, the dolls, all the playthings. It was amazing. You could go down and see all these different toys, and now you're lucky to see maybe four or five action figures in the Star Wars section. I got some action figure stands from, I think, Entertainment Earth that I'll probably be doing for these. The other thing, I was going to save this for more like a milestone unboxing, but I decided that I wanted to do them now because, one, I've downsized, so I've got kind of a smaller space, and these take up a lot of room. And then I've also got a section on a shelf behind me that I had saved for them, and I didn't want to put something else up in that section and then take it down right away after to replace these with. So I figured might as well do it as a kind of kickoff to season 3, I guess you call it, for these figures. Same thing. This one doesn't have a 0-1. This one's a 0-0. Otherwise, also got your info card. Same kind of deal on the back. Yeah, I miss those eras. I remember Mom and Dad going to Walmart, and they would go off and do their thing, and we would go to the toy aisle and just look through all the different figures just on the shelf. It was fun. It was a lot of fun back then. But otherwise, yeah, I'd say 2007 was one of my favorite. The only downside of that is like the faces just weren't great yet. Like they've gotten great with the photorealistic scans now for this scale of figures. So those are good now, but just scarcity and prices are crazy. These were $5. And if you had a KB Toys outlet, they were $3. So compared to some of these scale figures going for close to $20 now, if they're a store exclusive, is kind of ridiculous. All right, so we've got one of our Swole figures. Here's Lando. This was another one I had when I was a kid. He comes with a couple blasters and a hard plastic cape that has a peg hole in the back that you could just connect him on. And then you could just hold both the blasters. Yeah, we had a KB Toys outlet in our mall when I lived in North Dakota. And man, stuff was cheap. And they'd have those weird like automated like robot toys that would just like the puppies that would just sit there and bark at you, do flips, or the ones with like the penguins that would go up the ramp and then slide down and then loop around, and there's like a magnet that would take them back up the stairs. I feel like all KB Toys had those at one point. It was a great way to get just cheap toys too. So there's Lando dual wielding his guns. No variants for him. He's just one of a kind. There's only one Lando Calrissian. I think his stance is a little bit better. And they're also top heavy and swollen. All right, he stands up though. Now let's open up somebody I didn't have growing up. Got your Death Star Gunner. This one says Collection 1, which is another thing that has variants. As you can see, this one's kind of beat up. Some of them say Collection 2. Some of them don't say Collection at all, like the first ones I opened up. And then there's like a checklist you could do on the back of this one. A little more simplified info card and stats. And you can see some of the more later lined figures. No variants for this guy. True, there are 2 Landos. Well, no, I guess 2 Landos. I was going to say 3, but the Lando in Battlefront is Donald Glover too. They just re-released a version of this Lando in the modern line, and he's about the only figure that you can find on shelves these days because they put like 2 of them in a case, and nobody needs more than one Lando, so he's just sitting there collecting dust. What are the stats about? Let's see. We've got height, so I guess all of the Death Star gunners were the same height of 1.8 meters. Status, Death Star Super Laser Operator. His classification, he was human. and he worked for the Galactic Empire. The Lando's ones were super long, and these were all in English. Like nowadays, you'll get them in multiple languages as well, which is kind of nice. Like this would probably be half of this, and the other one would be in Spanish or German or something as well. Or there were some that were called tri-logo cards that were multilingual. I didn't get any of those. All right, so we've got a Death Star gunner. This guy's not as buff as Lando over there. He's kind of average. He's a little broad-shouldered, though. He's got kind of a nice gleam to him, I'd say. Like his helmet looks nice and shiny, and his breastplate is kind of shiny as well. He didn't the muscle. No, he didn't. He's got a good just matte finish on his legs, so like the gloves and the mask and the boot all kind of stand out. He's missing the kind of antennas that his character would have. But otherwise, so he's not entirely screen accurate, but he's got a lot of the same guns that were repacked, like as you probably saw with Lando. He came with one of these. A lot of them come with this like Imperial Stormtrooper blaster. And I think the regular Stormtrooper comes with this blaster as well. But you can just sling it over his shoulder. And he is ready to go shoot anybody who comes at his laser. This is not bad. This was one I did not get when I was a kid. I just didn't care too much about, the Death Star gunner. So, new one to have in my collection. I don't even have a super beat up version. And he can actually stand up. Kind of. Maybe not. Maybe. Oh, nope. He can stand. We have a stand. All right. God, there's so many of them. Let's see. We'll do another one without a variant. Everybody's favorite Wookiee, Chewbacca. As you can see, this one doesn't have a collection one or anything in the corner, even though I believe he was in the first wave. And then the bottom, he's got a more extensive blurb. Again, height, status, classification, affiliation. Ooh, this one's got his weapon of choice. And then all the other, like this was, I think, the first wave was the Stormtrooper, Vader, Han, Luke, Chewbacca, R2, Ben, and C-3PO. Is blurry. Let's see if I can do something with the focus. Come on, pull back. There we go. Nope, it's just as bad. It's a little better. All right, so yeah, Chewbacca. This one also got the super swole treatment. He's got some muscular. He's got really muscle arms. Let's see. This one was not one I had as a kid, but once my sisters kind of not really outgrew Star Wars, but outgrew Star Wars toys, I think I got it from one of my sisters at that point. And this 1995, so 30 plus years old plastic. Not quite 30 plus years, but almost. No, this one's already got his gun on his shoulder. Let's take that off. There's his big gun. They all kind of came with like a big gun and a blaster, which in this case, Chewbacca's bowcaster. And yeah, he is bulked. He definitely did not skip arm day. That is a intimidating Wookiee. Imagine if he had these arms in the movie. Chewbacca was played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Scary. Other than the ridiculous bulkiness of him, he doesn't look too bad. Paint's okay. The eyes are okay. This is definitely like a tougher plastic too than what we've got today. I don't really see like plastic being too like rubbery or negative like how a lot of collectors say, but There's definitely a difference of the formula they used back then. And Chewie can stand. No variants to him that I'm aware of. True, Lou Ferrigno probably could have played him. That would have been better. His bandolier is not removable. It's stuck on there. It's molded. It's a part of him. This one's probably got the better balance so far out of all of them because his legs are kind of the not quite as like skinny as Lando's, so he's more evenly bulked. So he's got a better frame of balance. Let's see. Let's get to Luke Skywalker. They did several of Luke's. We've got, I think, 5 different versions of him. This one's collection 2. Also got the more diminutive blurb for the information block, some new vehicles, some other characters in the checklist. And then like I said, I tried to get beat up cards so that way I wasn't opening up mint condition stuff. Like things that needed to be opened. Some guy was selling, like I said, 90% of this stuff on eBay that were all these beat up cards. So he probably either bought a bulk collection that had some beaters in it or had his personal collection get damaged from a storm or a move or something. Who knows? Now, this is if Luke was a little swole for a stormtrooper. Not quite as overly muscular, or at least it's hidden pretty well in the figure. Man, I wish I could get this focused to be better. Maybe it's the light that's messing with things. Sorry, just going to mess with my settings a little bit. There we go. That's a little better. Really big helmet. Fits on him. We do have a stormtrooper in this wave. We'll compare how he looks. So I don't think it was a completely kit-bashed version that they just stuck Luke's head on. I think this is a different size torso. So they did do a little bit difference. And then the only way to get Han back then was a like Kellogg's mail away promotion, send in like 5 pops or whatever they were and $2 and they'd send you Han Solo. And that was the only way to get them until they released a multi-pack where it was like Luke, Han, and Chewbacca with handcuffs, which, man, Chewbacca's got a weird mark on the top of his head. But there is Luke number 1. I don't think there are any versions or variants of him in his Stormtrooper armor, which is surprising because I think the rest of the Lukes had variants. Didn't have that one when I was growing up either. I did have these guys, Jawas, Collection 2. Got your smaller blurb on the back, the checklist. These ones also have kind of the same play feature that R2-D2 did, where there's a translucent hole on the top that if you shine a light through, it makes it look like their eyes are glowing. Let's see. Anybody got any questions? I wish I had a count for you guys, but I did not count them as I was pulling them out, unfortunately. So there's quite a few of them. These ones have kind of a distinct memory of when I bought them, because I remember when Walmart did layaway, my mom put this one on layaway for us to get later. I'm not sure why I needed the Jawas so badly that we did layaway, but I think it was more along the lines of you can get one toy, pick out. And for some reason, I picked the Jawas. Which was my favorite as a kid? From these, I want to say the Yoda, which I'll get to soon. I think he was my favorite growing up. That and Han, just because I loved Han when I was a kid. He was my favorite character. Let's. So yeah, these guys have got the that little translucent part at the top and glowy eyes. This one works a little bit better than I think the R2D2 does. I'm kind of surprised they never did a like battery operated ones where you could push a button on their backs or something and their eyes would light up. All right. Well, since we're talking about Yoda and he's right here, let's go ahead and get to him. This is Yoda, everybody's favorite Muppet. I don't think this was collection 1. This might have been collection 2. Yeah, this looks like when they started showing off collection 2. And then you got this kid super excited about his lightsaber. Some new vehicle choices as well. Join the Star Wars fan club. Call 1-800-TRUE-FAN. Wonder what that number does now these days. And then Yoda's got a longer blurb as well. Yoda was also my favorite character back in the day. Just because I used to be able to do a pretty good impression of him when I had a higher voice or a higher pitch. And then, as most people do or most guys do when they grow older, their voices deepen. So I couldn't quite do his anymore. They released a lot of vehicles back in the day. I actually have one. The one I had when I was growing up was this land speeder here, and I actually just found it for pretty cheap at like a toy seller. So I have that one. I didn't get any of the rest of them. They didn't really do pack-in figures too much. If they did, it was like this scout trooper that was just kind of molded that he could only sit on the speeder bike. You could take him off, but he was going to be stuck in that bike riding stance. So there wasn't much you could do with them. With the way these guys are all bulked, it was really hard to get most of them to fit in a lot of these vehicles. I didn't have a Millennium Falcon. I didn't get my Falcon until the original trilogy collection, which came out in 2005. I got that one. And then I got what's known as the BMF Millennium Falcon in 2008, which is currently in storage. I do not have it here, but it is huge. Huge. All right, so we have Yoda, which honestly I still think has probably one of the better sculpts in his face. He looks a lot like the puppet version of Yoda, I think. He's kind of basic. You can sit down a little bit. Oh, he's already really loose. Dang. Ooh, really loose. That's kind of a bummer. Loose right out of the package. He also comes with a backpack that was just rubber. And that'll go around a Luke figure that we get later. And then he came with a cane, which I know I definitely lost several times. And I remember I was, stupid kid, throw your figures around, playing out in the church parking lot, throwing them around, and he got somehow thrown up onto the roof. And I don't know why. I just never got somebody to go get him for me. And then somebody was cleaning the gutters and just randomly found him I don't know, a month later. Somehow he just stayed up there in the gutters and made his way back to me. But I still have that Yoda someplace. Kind of bummed his joints are so loose. Everybody else has been great, but not Yoda. So yeah, I don't necessarily think this was maybe my favorite figure because clearly I threw him up on a roof and then forgot about him, so I didn't care about him too much. But Yoda was definitely my favorite character, or one of my favorite characters. Let's see. Let's do this one that's got kind of a play feature. Here's another droid from the wave. This was R5D4, came out in collection 2. Another smaller blurb. This guy's got one of the kind of rare play features in this wave. He explodes and fires his evaporator. So let's open him up and see how that works. This one, I'm not sure if he's discolored or if it's just his bubble that's discolored. So I'm kind of anxious to see If I actually got one that's still going to be kind of white, or if he's, just as yellow. Let's see. If I can even get him out. All right, he's pretty. He's a dirty white, but he's not discolored, so that's good. All right, so for some reason they decided R5-D4 needed to be ready for action. He's got these weird, I don't think they move. They do move. So he's got these weird blaster things on his side, which is, totally true to the character. Let's see. And then he opens up. And this is where you're supposed to be able to put in this launcher. And then there are a couple variations of him with the trigger on the bottom. You can see that. This one is I can't remember if this is the L or the T. I think this is the T-shaped trigger. And then there's a version that came along later called the L-shaped trigger. That came with the green card, which took me a while to figure out that it didn't actually come with the red card, because this was one that I was trying to find for a while. Yeah, Skippy the Jedi droid, the non-canonical droid with force powers, which, I don't know, he's kind of canonical in my book. All right, let's see how this play feature works. Hopefully I don't shoot my eye out. I don't even know how to trigger this right. Wow, this play feature just works great. Maybe this is why they changed the trigger. Okay, let me look at the back. Firing button. Press the button to fire. It ain't working. Okay, doesn't work great. I thought this thing was going to fire more, but... Okay, so he kind of explodes. So this is probably widely regarded as one of the worst toys from this wave, just because clearly the bottom of him just looks weird. He's got this stance, so that way he could shoot the firing mechanism that clearly doesn't work very well. His middle leg is huge, which I know some people kind of like. And then he's just, like I said, he's got a play feature that doesn't even work. So this is probably, if you had to pick a worst wave out of kind of a thing, R5-D4 is probably your pick. So we're going to put him right over there. Skippy was what? In one of the, like the Star Wars What If ones? I can't remember what they were called. I think just Star Wars Tales or something like that. That one's also kind of old, too. I think that one came out pre-Revenge of the Sith, too, if I remember right. Let's do another one that's got a variant that I don't have because it came out in the later wave. We've got this Tusken Raider, collection number 2. Still the little blurbs. They didn't do as much checklist. I'm going to open them up and tell you what his variant is here in a second. His bubble's really, I don't even know what's all over this side. True. You got to have some guys who just get knocked over by cannon fire. Which is funny you mentioned Bantha fodder when I'm talking about the Bantha Riders. All right, so we have our Tusken Raider, also known as Sand People. And this guy comes with a gaffy stick, which is completely useless. Why? Because the 2 hands he has, one is solid. He can't hold anything. It's completely, can't get through it. And the other one is closed. So he can hold stuff, but as you can see, with the way the gaffy stick is, you can't go past this point and you can't go past this point. So that's about all he can do with it. They did fix that later on when the green card release. They opened up this hand so that way he was able to actually hold on to things. But yeah, he comes with an accessory he can't even use. This guy also has kind of a similar removable robe as I think it's kind of removable. It may not. I think I forced mine a little when I was a kid to get it to move, so we won't do that. But it's removable if you try hard enough. This guy's also not as muscular and might stand up a little bit better. A little bit. All right, let's see. Out of all these, I don't want to open the one Princess Leia figure that came in this line, the one female character you get. But let's do some more Mantha fodder now that Carlos is mentioning it. We've got TIE fighters, pilots. I'm not sure what collection he was. Might have been collection 1. Looks like he's still got the full blurb. Somebody should call this number and see what happens if somebody still answers it, or if it's just some poor company in Florida that's like, stop calling us. All right, so I thought they repeated a lot of these guns, but maybe not as much. Well, obviously, other than the Imperial Blaster, which this TIE Fighter pilot also has. But the big gun, I believe, is the only one we found so far that is from his. But yeah, also, the blaster, he comes with holding it. This one's pretty similar to the Death Star Gunner. In fact, I'm sure it's the exact same body, same mold. They just put a different head on it. The chest piece is a little different, but clearly those legs and hands are the same. So a little bit of kit pashing and reusing of parts there. And he can't even sling his over his shoulder. Just going to put him like that. Again, not a bad one. Also not as grossly swollen. I think they kept that to more of the hero characters. Well, except for, I know there's one Stormtrooper in here that is just super buff. But he can actually stand up not too bad either. That was also one I did not get when I was a kid, just because, army building was not an appealing thing. So I didn't need a bunch of TIE fighter pilots when I didn't have a TIE fighter. Let's see. Let's do a couple Lukes. We've got the Luke Skywalker and Dagobah fatigues to go with Yoda. Same thing as the Obi-Wans. We got long tray and short, or long lightsaber, short lightsaber. And he also comes with a blaster. I'm not sure what collection, but he's got the longer blurb of the bios in the back. And this is not the same mold as Obi-Wan's lightsaber. They at least changed up the molds, which is nice. So they weren't that cheap. But, every Luke came with this lightsaber mold, though. God, this tape holds up well for being almost 30 years old. You'd think it would crumble or just be all caked on. Come on. Give me your blaster. There we go. This was also one I didn't have when I was a kid. I had the one when he was in Bespin, which was the full outfit. This one's also got a weird stance. I think they did that so that way he could wear the backpack, which kind of went on like so. which was just comically huge looking. You know, I'm kind of getting priced out of a lot of Star Wars action figures. Like the ones I'm having the most fun collecting right now are the G.I. Joe classifieds, because they're still holding pretty steady at $20, $23 each. There were some of them are kind of difficult to find, but I'm not a completist, so I don't need to have all of them. So I don't mind missing some of them. But with the action, like the 6-inch line going to like $27 or $28 for like the GameStop exclusives for coming with barely any like accessories or anything, is just, I don't know, I'm kind of pricing out. I'm not buying as much as I used to, which is, is a good thing. And yeah, I'm just kind of not moving away, but if I'm going to spend $30 on an action figure, I'd rather do it on like the more higher quality NECA, like Universal Monster figures that come with great sculpts and a bunch of different heads and hands and stuff. And then you're lucky to get 2 weapons with a Star Wars action figure, or any even soft goods with them. So I'm kind of just waiting and buying stuff on clearance because it seems like Amazon's always got them marked down. All right, so that backpack is a pain. I still haven't even really gotten them on. And then Yoda would fit in there like so. And there you go. Let's see if they would even stand. Oh, he stands up pretty well. So yeah, they definitely molded him with that in mind, of him holding on to Yoda. Oh yeah, especially with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures. I mean, I've never really been a TMNT fan, so I don't care that much. But I feel the pain of all the people who miss out on those pre-orders and just don't get them. The only ones I do have is I got the movie versions for TMNT 2, and I almost got the last Ronin figure when it was in stock on Walmart, but I know I decided against it. It just wasn't something I felt like I needed to collect. So yeah, those are definitely tricky to get. And I think the only one I've missed that I've regretted is the Elvira figure, which I have yet to even see in stores. All right, so this Luke and Yoda stand pretty good. Probably take them off when I display. But right now, I love the Universal Monster figures. I'm excited for the Dracula, and the Invisible Man looks all right. Bride of Frankenstein looks pretty good, but I love the other ones. And then they occasionally do another just random one that I like. But yeah, even Marvel Legends I'm not collecting as much anymore because they too are going up to like $25 with no real changes that seem necessary. So I'm just waiting for sales so I can get stuff in there underneath, below $20. All right, and then again, only difference is lightsaber size. That's it. Not really sure why those had a running change. Probably because the long lightsaber is ridiculously long and out of scale. But it took them forever to initiate that. Oh no, this one's got kind of messed up arms. I don't know if you can see that weird blemish. But it's like every character that came with a lightsaber had that issue. So you would think after the first one they would be like, "Oh wait, let's fix that." But nope. Yeah, this Luke is not going to stand up without Yoda. There's no way. Maybe if I don't stand him flat on his feet, you can kind of be doing like a put your left foot in, hokey pokey kind of situation. Maybe not. Okay, he's going to lie down for now. Take a little nap. Yeah, these old ones are definitely super memorable. I miss them. And I feel like a lot of us that were born in the 90s are trying to revisit them and come back to them because some of the prices have gone up a bit on a lot of them, especially like the old Legos. All right, we've got a Sand Trooper here, Tatooine Sand Trooper, another one that I had when I was a kid. This one, if I remember right, has kind of a weird stance. This one's also a collection one, which I'm not sure where the collections are broken down to at this point. Minimal bio checklist on the back. There's a couple of toys from my childhood that I kind of want to get. I had a Gambit figure from X-Men that came with like a launching like disc slammer thing is I think it was what it was called. Like he stood next to it and you could slam the top and he'd shoot a bunch of like Gambit psychic powered discs or something. And he looked stupid like 90s armor guy. He didn't even have his cool trench coat and stuff yet. Kind of want to re-get that, and I feel like it's one that hasn't gotten too out of price. Like it's maybe $20, which is about what it would be now. That one was sticky. All right, so we've got Tatooine Sand Trooper here. He's got a little slot in the back for his backpack. I remember mine broke, and I think I was holding it on with not silly putty, but poster putty. This guy's also a little bit more posed with his gun, it seems like. Let's see, what's the best way to have him do this? Yeah, a lot of the old Legos are stupid expensive now. And some people are trying to make the prices of these go up. But like I said in the beginning, I really don't think they're worth more than $10 each, except for maybe some of the variants that are a little bit more rare. Here's our Tatooine Sand Trooper. He's kind of got more of an actiony pose with his gun. You put too much stress on the back if you're not careful. So he's a little bit more cooler, I'd say. Yeah, he's kind of cool. I like him. It was, like I said, this was one I had when I was a kid. His balance is pretty good too. Got a good stance for holding that big heavy gun. So this one's not bad. I have fond memories of that one because he was one of the few Imperial soldiers that I had. Let's do 3PO. Again, long blurb. I believe he was with the first batch of collections. And then, like R2, he's got this super great chrome paint job. I'm a little worried to see what his leg joints are like because I know he was a figure that had a lot of that problem. Like the last time they did a chrome 3PO, I think was in 2007. Now they all just have kind of like a chrome paint. It's similar to this, is what most of the C3POs look like now. And this is the concept Macquarie art series C3PO. But they all kind of have this more pearl gold color to them instead of the chrome. Which cost-wise, I think it's just because chrome is pricey. Or at least that's what they say. All right. This one's a little sticky, and I'm not sure how well the chrome survived. His legs are all right, though. He's still holding in there. I know they did versions later where you could take his arms and his legs off, and you could put him in a net for Chewbacca to carry. Honestly, this is still probably one of my favorite 3POs. Scaling, he's fine. He's, the same size of all the new ones. And it's just golden, just gorgeous chrome job, too. Just looks awesome. And he's C3PO, so you don't really need him to do a bunch of like action poses. Like, what is he gonna do, right? He doesn't do anything other than wave his hands over his head in the movies and cry. So, he doesn't need to be super articulated. So this version is fine in my book, honestly. Like that shine is just great. I'm over here by her too. Let's see, man. I haven't opened a single Han Solo. Let's see. Let's do, and from Return of the Jedi, Han Solo and Carbonite. He's a little swole as well. He's got a longer blurb. Couple different vehicles. Oh, this one's actually got the Shadows of the Empire figures, which was this huge, at the time, multimedia event when this new book came out, and they had a video game for it. They did action figures, comics. This was this huge thing that was not the first Star Wars novel, but it just got this huge big press about the novel, and it took place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and it was about them trying to rescue Han from Jabba. So Han's not in it. They have a fill-in Han for this character called Dash Rendar, who's kind of cool, and I feel like they're like maybe next year they'll include him in the new there's like comic-based action figures for the 6-inch lines. I feel like we're very close to getting a newer version of Dash. But one of the few things in this wave that is actually worth a decent amount of money if you still have the package is Dash Rendar's Outrider, just because of the event of Shadows of the Empire and kind of the coolness of the character and how many people have kind of fond memories of playing him in the video game. So there's some decent demand for this vehicle, and it's kind of a cool shape. I think they brought it back and used its design for something in probably like Rebels or Clone Wars. So it's made a resurgence, but Dash hasn't. He kind of ambiguously died at the end of Shadows of the Empire. Spoilers, but they left plenty of room for him to come back, and then they never brought him back. He's never been... Okay, I don't want to say never. Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I don't think he ever made any other appearance outside of those, Never read about him in any of the other books, which is weird with how favorably he was looked on. I guess they just never found a thing for him. Then we also have these funny little deluxe figures. Shadows of the Empire was a book, a comic, and a Nintendo 64 game. It was all those. It was mainly a book, though. But they turned it into comic, and like these sets down here actually each came with a comic. There were 2 packs with Darth Vader and Prince Zaxar. I don't know really how to pronounce his name. He was the main villain in the book / comic. He was kind of vying for Vader's spot as the Emperor's right-hand man. So they came with the comic, and then this Boba Fett and IG-88 also came with the comic. So you could read it in either form. Hey, Pat. Welcome. Glad you could make it. The other thing on the back of this, other than the Shadows of the Empire figures, is also these kind of funny deluxe vehicle sets that came with kind of the same versions of the figures we already got, but just these big, weird, clunky vehicles. Like this smuggler flight pack with Han Solo is just ridiculous and huge. The speeder is kind of fun. This crowd control stormtrooper also looks very not usable. I don't know why anybody would think that'd be a good way to control crowds. But this one's actually it's got a pretty big bubble because you got Carbonite block in the background. something I don't think this one has a variant. Pretty sure it doesn't. Just double checking, looking through my stats. Okay, he doesn't. I wasn't sure because I know the old ones from the 70s and 80s had variants that came with small heads, large heads, and just weird stuff like that. And they don't think they got to that with these. They kept them all kind of the same head size. There is a variant Han Solo coming up though that I will get to. All right, so here we go. Got the Carbonite block and little clips in the back to hold him. Stickers on the inside, and these are already peeling off now that they've seen air for the first time in 30 years. So not bad details. I feel like this actually looks like they got this to look pretty close to Harrison Ford, in all honesty. Like the figure, not so much. But the Carbonite block, I think this is a great Carbonite block. It looks good. It's maybe a little bit too big, but there's a lot of good little detail in this too for what it is. Lots of good creasing, like his clothing and the hands and the face. So they did a good job on this piece. Figure, not so much. There's little to no likeness in a lot of these characters from this wave, and this just because, you know, technology of the time. Few of these figures actually look like the actors. So this one, we're back to kind of the buff hero characters with skinny ankles. He does come with a blaster that a couple of the characters come with. So it's kind of a repackage there, but you know, they put all their money and effort into the Carbonite block, so I don't hate it. And this Han doesn't have too bad a balance. Yeah, he stands up actually pretty good. He's not as bad as the main series Vest Han Solo, which I'll get to soon. And then, because I think he was super buff and really bad stance in his leg. And then, yeah, he just clips on the back around the waist. And that's how you could hold him. Right? Like, home technology is pretty crazy. And there's people who sell those like better printed heads for crazy amounts of money. There's a couple of good 6-inch size figures. They need to really revisit A New Hope Han Solo in this scale for the vintage collection. Just because they don't have a good version with the new technology yet. But they've got a great Force Awakens 6-inch figure that they just re-released. That the head is just phenomenal on. Like, that looks great. And they just didn't quite get that with The New Hope. I mean, the head's okay, but it was definitely not a new sculpt. It was just a repaint of an older okay sculpt. Like, this is great. I really wish they would revisit this figure and give him an accurate sculpt, one that looks like Harrison Ford. It's like, this is great. Like, one of my favorite parts of Force Awakens was Harrison Ford coming back and, like, not just, you know, calling in this character. He actually treated her right and seemed like he probably wasn't happy to be there, but he at least seemed and acted like he was. And, like, this figure's great. And I wish they would actually revisit some Force Awakens characters and action figures, because it was right before they started doing all the good sculpts. So I would get, like, back then I still liked Finn and Rey and Poe, and I would love to get versions of them from that movie. Like, I liked Force Awakens. So I would love to see definitive versions of those characters. All right, since we just opened a Han, let's open a Greedo. He's also got a couple of different guns that I don't think we see repeated. So I'm just eating that, definitely talking about, yeah, definitely was way off. I thought they repeated a lot more of these weapons than they did. He's also got a collection one. Small blurb. His affiliation is freelance. Same. I'm freelance as well. Rhodian is a species. His height, status, bounty hunter, short lived. And then you've also got a checklist, which we should be opening up all of these, if not more. All right, this Greedo is okay. His head's kind of a little small, I'd say, though, if I'm picking things. I mean, I think the only reason why they killed Harrison Ford in Force Awakens is because that was the only way they could get him to come back, since he's been wanting the character to die since Empire. And that leaves him free to, do as many Indiana Jones movies as he wants. Which I'm moderately excited for the Indiana Jones movies. I'm kind of more excited for the action figures that are coming, since they're doing 6-inch figures of those as well. And so there's got a bunch of figures for Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom. And I'm torn between wanting to pay for those, but they're $26 each. They do come with like more accessories and like build an artifact where they each come with like a piece of the Ark of the Covenant, so they seem a little bit more worthwhile. But still, $27 is just a lot. So if they do a decent sale, I'll probably end up getting them. All right, so here we have Greedo. His colors are a little muted. I'm not sure if that's because I got a figure that might have been out in the sun for a little too long. He kind of looks a little sun faded, so I think I got one that might have been like that. His head is also, I don't know, feels just a little disproportionate to the body. Comes with a couple of different guns that we don't see make a comeback in this wave. I'm pretty sure, at least. They probably pop up later in the green card or Power of the Jedi figures, but this is all we got for now. Not a great figure, but he stands up better. Like pretty easily, actually. So that's nice compared to some. Got a bunch of like 20-year-old tape residue all over my fingers now. It's gross. So this one's not terrible. They just did I guess I would call it a definitive version of him not too long ago. Wish I knew where I put that. Let's do another Cantina alien. We've got Hammerhead. I would try to pronounce his name. See, I can't even pronounce pronunciation. So I'm just going to call him by the name Hammerhead, which was the name given to him by Kenner back in the 70s. If you like reading Star Wars books, then I highly recommend Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, which goes into this character's background, Greedo's background, all the random background aliens. It's just some great collection of short stories by kind of put together by Kevin J. Anderson and written by a bunch of authors at the time. So if you need something that's kind of an easy, quick read with a bunch of short stories, Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina and Tales from Jabba's Palace are great. And like I said, goes into this character a lot. This also was not one I had when I was younger. I got a version of him later in life, though, because if you've watched my channel, you know that I love the Cantina. One of the few Ultimate Collector's Lego sets that I have is the Mos Eisley Cantina. And mostly the reason I love it so much is because of that book, Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. Just because it was just an interesting look at all these background characters you saw for, less than a minute. All right, it's funny because this character comes with a gun, and in the book, he's a pacifist. Their whole species is kind of pacifists. So it's kind of amusing that he comes with a weapon, but it was the 90s, so everybody needed to have a gun. They changed it later. The versions of him that came out in the future came with a staff, so they honored his pacifist roots. This one's not bad either. He's got some good little detail, decent shading in the paint. He's got some nice little sculpt in the arms and the legs and the face. Oh, mine's got kind of a messed up eye. Oh, and a messed up side. Okay, maybe I take it back. Yeah, this one's not okay. My version isn't great, I guess. His face is kind of messed up, unfortunately. He's got some spots here. But if he did not have those spots, I'd say this is a decent figure. He wouldn't be able to sit down at the cantina, but he could stand off to the side pretty decently. I mean, I think he's not bad. He's also not super bulky like the rest of them, so you could put him in modern dioramas and he wouldn't look too out of place. Stands up pretty well thanks to these foot stance. Yeah, this one's probably one I like. Not bad. He's solid. It was weird that they picked him and Greedo as the representatives from the cantina for that wave out of all the characters. You know, I guess Greedo makes sense because he actually had some interaction, but Hammerhead did get a lot of screen time too. So I guess there's that. But like you think the bartender or Dr. Evazan or Ponda Baba, which did come out later, would have been included. All right, we've got a couple more variants. Again, only difference is lightsabers on these. Long and short. Same thing as before. And this is our second Luke Skywalker. In his X-Wing gear. Same thing, longer blurb. This one's pretty early on in the release, so it's still got the full bio and the list of the same figures in the back. I'm getting low. I've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 figures left. And I think half of those are versions that have variants. And I'm going to forget the 2 that I set aside for last over here if I'm not careful. So I'm going to do that around the camera so you don't see what they are. This tape failed. All right, see, this one kind of looks more like he's a snowspeeder pilot, but he doesn't have quite the same, like the collar's puffy enough that he almost looks more like he's a snowspeeder pilot, but that's just personal notice. He doesn't have like the visor that's supposed to come down in front of his eyes, so that's missing a detail. His stance is okay. Looks like he's got a decent standing. His center of balance isn't bad, despite having, you know, an Alex Ross chest. And here we go. Here's the short version. And like I said, these are the exact same lightsabers as the other Luke. No details on the handle. It's just a silver painted piece, and underneath it would be translucent blue. So it's all just one solid piece with the handles painted. And that's it. That's the difference. That's the long one. Oh, this one's kind of loose. This one's got a loose leg. And that's it. Not really much to say about this one. Didn't have this guy as a kid. Try not to mess up the paint on the handles. Yeah, look at that. That's ridiculously long. You could cut somebody up pretty far away from that. You don't even get too close. And this blaster shows up a lot in these figures, with these line of figures as well. Just the Han Solo blaster. Well, Luke had it too. Okay. will say a lot of these figures' hands do not lend to holding their weapons very well. At least there's not much give to them currently. All right, let's see. What do we got? I'll save them. Let's do another Han. So this is Han number 2, which was in Hoth gear, which we got a Hoth Han before we got Hoth Luke, which is kind of funny. Same thing, full blurb, more detail with some of the stuff that came out later. But these ones do have, you may not see a variant. Well, can you tell me what the variant is just by looking at these? Any guesses? Any guesses while I open them? I'll let you know what it is once I get to it, but take a good long look. See if you can figure out what it is. It is kind of a variant we've already seen. Clearly not a long or short lightsaber. Open that one up. You can kind of look at it more. And we'll do this one. Anybody got any guesses what this variant of this Han Solo could be? It's kind of hard to notice, and it's probably harder to pick up with the camera quality that I got. So I'll hold them up a little closer. Oh, good catch on the belt. The belt is not fully different, but I know that there is a couple. That was some conflicting stuff that I saw with some of the figure releases, that some of them actually said, or some of them do have like different belt loops. Not this one though. This one is the hand. His right hand is right hand. His right hand is different, much like the Tusken Raider hand that couldn't actually hold anything. You got this hand on this earlier version that will not actually hold a blaster. So they corrected it and gave him more of that C shape so he could actually hold the guns in the later line. Which is a weird like quality control thing that's kind of odd they overlooked. It's like, you can't hold the guns you give them. What good are they? See? You will not hold that gun. You can hold a gun in this hand, but that's it. And then, yeah, they fixed that later on where he can now hold both of his guns. Weird little mistakes that it's odd made it past quality control. But it's funny you mentioned the belt loops, or the belts, Pat, because there are some that have that variant, and I want to say the one Princess Leia figure in this wave has them. But like I said, it was hard to find a definitive list of all the variants and all the different figures that have them, so I just couldn't put it together. This Han's also got kind of a weird stance. He can kind of stand up okay. He's also kind of doing the hokey pokey, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So he can kind of stand. Okay, I'm not going to fight him. He can lay down over there too. All right. Oh, let's see. I want to do you guys kind of last. You kind of last. Okay. We'll do our Stormtrooper, the one single-carded version, so we'll be able to look back and see how different he is from the Luke, who's also a collection one. Oh, he's actually got a long blurb for an Imperial soldier. That's kind of funny. Their heights were all the same because maybe he was a clone. Okay, let's open them up. This one has somebody's gun that is the same. Come on. I was going to cut off after this, but I guess not. Oh, well, he had nothing holding him in there. All right, so he has the same gun as the Death Star gunner, or the same guns, same heavy blaster and same little blaster. So the weapons are a repack. Let's see how he is compared to the Luke. I may be wrong. Those do kind of look like the same torsos now that I'm looking at it. All right, so maybe the Luke in Stormtrooper armor was a kit bash, as they call it, when they take parts from another figure to make a actual figure. So they did just... The arms are different, though. So Luke's arms are different. There's definitely more of a bend. Odd. So they did new arms for the Luke, but the torso and the legs are the same. Very strange. All right, I am down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 figures. 6 unique figures, kind of. Stormtrooper doesn't stand up too well yet. Okay, we will do Luke number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, Luke number 4. This is Luke in his Jedi Knight outfit. Now, there's a variant here as well. It's kind of hard to tell, but there is a difference there. See if anybody can shout it out as I'm opening it. This is actually not the lightsaber this time either. It'll be pretty obvious once I get them out more in the light, I think. But if anybody's got any guesses, go ahead and give it a try. Whoop. Oh, and the back, another long blurb. And this one's got the Shadows of the Empire figures and vehicles in the back. There's one Luke. A new lightsaber. Come on. One is more shiny. Nope, not quite. Not quite. They also gave this a version of this figure away when they showed the special editions at certain theaters. So you could also get this version of Luke in that form as well. And I think that's one of the figures that is worth a decent amount of money these days. Just because that's an exclusive. All right, now that you can see them more clearly, anything? Take his robes off, and then I think you'll be able to tell. Different vests. This is the brown vest variant and the black vest variant. And that's their difference. Yep, shirt color, which is weird because, again, I'm pretty sure his vest is clearly not brown in the movie, yet they made a version of him that was brown. I want to say brown vest is the one that came first, and black vest came different, or came later. This one's kind of neat because it's a little bit more posed. With Luke in his robe and the lightsaber like sticking out. It's kind of a cool, I want to say action-y shot, but it's a little bit more neat. The cape is just completely vinyl or rubber. There's hard rubber plastic, so there's nothing you can really do with it outside of that. The hands don't turn yet or anything. They haven't gotten to that point in the technology. So yeah, not much more you can do with that. Well, that's it. That is the black and the brown vest Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker versions. All right, let's do this. We've got two Vaders, and we're back again with the lightsaber variants, long and the short. That's it. Now this Vader is, I think, more scarier one you'd see if you met him in a hallway than the one in Rogue One with, looks like he bench presses TIE fighters. You can see he is, takes cape off. Pretty buff there. He'll win the arm wrestling championship for sure. He is, like I said, he bench presses TIE fighters on the weekends. He's got a removable coat or cape, which is the only way you could get him into that TIE fighter if you wanted to. And then instead of the gray handle lightsabers, like Luke and Obi-Wan's, this was black handled. On top of that, translucent red. And he also got the full blurb bio as well in the collection one, it looks like. And we'll quickly open up this one, as this has gone on for almost 2 hours now. I think also the bulk is probably did not attribute to them selling as well as they thought. They definitely sold because, you know, everybody bought them up thinking they were going to strike it rich in 10 years. Because even by the 90s, the figures from the 70s and the 80s were already selling for like hundreds of dollars, and they'll go for thousands of dollars now. So even back then, people were expecting to get rich from these figures, and then it just never happened. Even the one that is worth a decent amount of money isn't worth more than $1,000, and I'll tell you more about that one when I get to it. Man, some of this cape holds really well 30 years later. All I want is this lightsaber, man. Give it to me. There we go. All right, there's your short lightsaber, Vader. So yeah, I think the only reason they sold well is because everybody or lots of people bought them in bulk and sat on them, expected to get rich quick after 10 years time or something, and thought they could sell them for more, and then they just didn't. So if there hadn't been those people expecting that to happen, I don't think they would have sold as well. Well, as kids, I loved them anyway because it was like Star Wars, the only thing Star Wars toys I could get outside of my mom's collection from the 70s, and couldn't really play with those. I could take them down and like look at them, but couldn't do much more than that. So I didn't care what they looked like. All right, we're going to do the one and only Princess Leia figure in this first collection, the one and only female character in this first collection. They didn't even have any other variation or any other costumes for Leia. Even she wasn't even in her slave outfit. Empire Strikes Back, Ewok Village. Those all came later. I think you get a couple more of them in the green card collection. But for the red card, this was the only Leia you could get, the only version. And she is kind of half fondly known as, I don't know. Because, it's not a laser pistol. It's a laser pistol. I feel like that's also one of the card versions, is like there's a version of her card that doesn't come with lasers in quotes. I know there's variants of the Yoda on card that doesn't say the power of the Force. It just says Star Wars. But backtracking, this Leia is kind of known as the monkey-faced Leia. I'm trying to show a little detail here, but this is not a great sculpt. There's no likeness to Carrie Fisher. There's really not even much of a feminine likeness to a woman here, other than two noteworthy mentions. But in the face, there is not much there. It's been compared to a monkey, and it's kind of there. She's got a removable cape, and the skirt removes too. So she's got like this jumpsuit kind of thing. But yeah, like Patrick said, there's, I can't remember if it's on the skirt or this belt underneath. There's variants, or I've seen people say there's variants of the number of dots and bars and things on her belt. But that was just nothing I was able to track down for the red wave. They might have been, when they re-released, almost everybody here was re-released on a green card later. So those versions, I think, were on those cards. And then she comes with a couple of weapons. I think this big gun shows up later on some other figures. But I think this was the only way to get the little pistol. And there you go. The only Leia you could get from this wave. The only female character. And some people think it's bad getting female characters now. Back then, they're like, no guy wants to play with girl characters. She's kind of got a decent actionly pose, like she's like running forward, ready to fight. Like, it's not well, the face is terrible. I'll give it that, but like, they definitely, some of these have like more like actiony type poses. So like this Leia, she kind of, I wouldn't say fully redeemed, but the actiony step forward pose kind of helps her. All right, we're down to 3 more characters. We've got Vest Han Solo, which I think this one was probably my favorite when I was a kid, just because, like I said, Han Solo was my favorite. full bio, collection one on the bottom. It says $10, but I didn't pay $10 for it. Like I said, you shouldn't pay more than $10 for any of these, especially if it's not in great shape. I think I've got a couple of them that I kept still on card. I got rid of a few of them, but I kept like the Luke. That was the very first figure that I ever got, and I think probably a Han, and I think Yoda. So some of my favorite ones. I do have versions that are still kept on card. This one's got that blaster we already saw on a few other figures, like the Luke and the other Han Solo. And then this Han, somebody had this gun already, maybe not. No, maybe not. I guess this is the only one that comes with this gun. Yeah, sculpt's not great. He's a little pretty broad-shouldered here, and his footprint is very small. Oh, he stands up better than I remembered, but he's definitely like leaning forward a little weird. He's not as bad as I remember him. This one's got kind of a weird mess up with his eyes, but man, it's just weird holding these with tight joints, not just my tight joints, but these action figures having tight joints, because I'm so used to, when I was playing with these as a kid, of them all loose and like flopping around from all the posing and sitting them down and moving them around. That it's weird seeing these so crisp and new and fresh. It's odd. It's very odd. This one was definitely one of my favorites, though. All right, I've got 4 figures, though, so they're variants. And, I had to end it with this Luke. Well, not end it with this Luke. I'm going to end it with a different character. But this Luke, close to ending it with, just because, this was one of my first ones, including R2-D2, was I got him and R2. Remember playing with them both on the carpet in our house in North Dakota. So, fond memories of these guys. I know I have him still somewhere. Kind of regret not breaking those old ones out of storage, because I was just there. I could have brought them for this and shown you a comparison of what my old toys look like now compared to what they looked like when they were fresh out of the box. And again, this is just so weird seeing them in such good shape. I mean, good physical shape too. Like, this guy could toss you around a room. Not sure who would win in an arm wrestling contest among these characters. Probably Chewbacca. Now that I say that, probably Chewbacca. Unless Vader used the Force, then Vader would probably win. But otherwise, Chewie, easy win. What do you guys think? Chewie would win the arm wrestling contest, or Lando, or Vader? I would say my money's on Chewie. I think this one might have been re-glued. This one feels kind of weird. Yeah, this one was definitely taped back onto its card. There's some weird discolorations you can kind of see. And whatever the heck is going on here. Like I said, I didn't buy great versions of these because I know I was going to open them. So I didn't want to open up perfectly good versions of these toys for this video. I was specifically seeking out damaged cards. Not damaged figures, but like damaged bubbles and bent things. This one's been all glued, like re-glued, so I think it fell off. See if I can get them out. There we go. Oh, that tape failed. That's probably why. And then, yeah, this is, again, just long lightsaber, short lightsaber. That's the only difference. Bam. Well, I forgot which one was which. I think this one's the long lightsaber. And then this kind of weird, what do they call it? grappling hook, blaster, and lightsaber. I guess it's supposed to be like the grappling hook he used to swing across the Death Star, which was attached to his belt, not a gun. But, 90s Kenner, they thought differently. His abnormally long lightsaber. Bam. All right. So with this loop, that brings us to the last two figures. Now, there are three variants of this figure. One of them is worth $300, which is not one that I got. I could not find a version anywhere. It's rare. So I couldn't find a version that wasn't like Gem Mint 9, 10, or whatever, the highest version of grading system they used for it. And I didn't want to open up a pristine mint figure. And I also wasn't in a place where I could spend $300 on a figure. I don't know if I'll ever be in a place to do so, especially for something from like the 90s. If I spend that kind of money on a figure, it's going to be on an older like figure from the 70s or 80s. But anyway, the last ones we were looking at are these Boba Fett figures. Now, the variants for these are, trying to see it, there we go, are the hands. You can kind of see there are whole circles and then half circle hands. And the one that's worth like $300 is the version that's got, I think, no circle and one circle. And this is half circle on both hands, full circle on all hands. But then I've also seen people who list them with a whole bunch of different comparisons. But the no circle handed one is the one that's most well known and is fairly highly sought after. It goes for like $300. There were two listings on eBay when I was trying to put this one together, and both of them were in like the $300 range. They hadn't sold yet, but some in the past have. And like I said, I just didn't feel like opening up perfect conditioned figures. I'd rather open up stuff that's a little bit beat up, especially when it's like older vintage toys. So Boba Fett's got his own big blurb in the background. He was collection 1, I think, so he came out towards the first wave, maybe the second group. These ones are actually in kind of great condition, but they're also not worth as much. Well, Boba Fett he's got like a tax on him where, especially now that the Mandalorian that's come out, everybody thinks Boba Fett's worth something. So these were not as cheap as some of the other guys were, but again, I only paid maybe somewhere around $200 for all of these, which is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 32 figures. So around $6 a figure, which is fair for how old these are, and considering they were $5 when they first came out. Let's see, Boba Fett, he's got his jetpack, got a slot in the back for it to hang on to. He's got his little cape, plastic, not cloth. They didn't do cloth stuff yet. He's kind of decently buff as well. He only comes with one blaster, as he has a jetpack. And this is not quite accurate to what his on-screen blaster is compared to some of the characters here. Like Han's blaster at least looks like his blaster. This one, not so much. So screen accuracy was not a high point for this figure. Now, I didn't have either of these Boba Fetts when I was growing up. I did have one of the deluxe figures that came with those weird, large backpacks, and the one that came with Boba Fett was just a huge, big backpack that could fire like a missile. and it had wings that would like pop open, kind of thing. And that was his big thing. And his antenna broke off of mine. So that was the Boba Fett I had growing up. I honestly didn't have too many of these, I guess. I had Obi-Wan, I had this Tatooine Luke, I had Han, Jawas, Yoda, Lando. I think my sisters had Vader and the Jedi Luke, so I didn't inherit them until later. And the Han Solo and Carbonite I know we had, and Chewbacca and the Stormtrooper. I don't think I had C-3PO either. I want to say that was the one I just kind of got after when I turned into the sibling who had all the Star Wars figures. Well, now that I got them out, I'll show you a little bit better with the hands. So that's the half circles, and then the full circles. And like I said, the only one that's worth a decent amount of money is the versions that's got no circles. There's some decent weathering. It's nothing too super detailed. The armor patches are kind of nice, like the skull on the side and the crest on the shoulder have some decent detail, but he doesn't look like super beat up or anything. So they could have gone a little bit better with that. And then the Wookiee braids along the side are fairly poorly painted. But it's not bad for a toy from the 90s, I'd say. I'd still have had a blast playing with this when I was a kid. The helmet's pretty decent. Let's see, can he stand up at all? He's got a kind of Negan lean there. He's not standing up too straight. Yeah, he's leaning to the left. That's really weird. There you go. They all kind of have to do like this hokey pokey left foot out to get him to stand right. That kind of sums up this line. Not bad, but doesn't really hold up because, you know, they've been so many improvements since then. And even like compared to some of the figures that came out 3 years after this, just before like episode 1, like they started improving them pretty quickly. Like got rid of the bulk, made it so that way they could hold weapons two-handed like they do in the movies. Started featuring like a bunch of cool like deluxe sets, more characters. So it's like, yeah, for these were kind of a weird niche in time with the bulkiness and the weapon choices and the characters. And they didn't last very long because as soon as like Green Card was done when they repackaged everybody, when they did, I think the next one, which was Power of the Jedi or Freeze Frame, I can't remember which, and then they would start gearing up for episode 1 coming out, which is, I think my next goal is to try to get a complete collection of episode 1 because those are fairly inexpensive currently as well, because they mass produced a lot of those and were kind of one of the reasons Kenner ended up getting dissolved by Hasbro and shut down is because of how much extra stuff was made for episode 1. It was just so much. And that was a fun time too, man, when episode 1 came out and it was all sorts of new stuff, new characters. It was just, what a time. I'd chalk it up to similarly to how when Force Awakens came out and Toys R Us was still around and they were doing some midnight releases for that, and like when Rogue One, and they've stopped doing that now, but it was fun times. It's like I was a kid and I couldn't fully appreciate that environment as a collector just because I was just like, ooh, toys, you know? All right, so we've got everybody here. Jawas up here. May not have enough room for everybody. Let's put you there. You there. All right. Everybody squeeze in tight. Pretend you're friends with everybody. As they say when you're trying to take company photos. This is Luke. This is Luke. All right. So there we have everybody. Oops. So this is pecan right there. So that's all of them. Let's see. New fave, if any. Let's go with, do any of these still hold up? I'm going to say this 3PO and R2 kind of still hold up. Maybe not so much the R2, but the 3PO. For like I said, this chrome is still beautiful. He doesn't need a whole lot of movement. He doesn't do much in the movies other than stand around flailing arms. So just the chrome itself kind of makes this figure still great. R2's all right. If he had wheels on the bottom, which I think they did do a couple versions later to help him roll around, he wouldn't be too bad. Let's see. Yeah, the Sand Trooper's pose is pretty cool. I'd say he's still probably a favorite. If I had to pick somebody up, I mean, I honestly kind of like Hammerhead. He, like I said, I think he would hold up well against some of the modern figures because his proportions aren't too crazy, even though he comes with a gun that's not mechanical, but who cares? He looks like a good other Hammerhead you could put in like any kind of dioramas or shelving displays that you're trying to do. Yeah, he still looks good. He looks solid. And he doesn't need a whole big dynamic pose. You can just have his hands at his side too. So if you need like a background alien for any kind of setup that you're doing, I think he holds up well. For any still favorites, I can't really say Boba Fett's a favorite just because I never had him when I was younger. I don't know, honestly. Like, the nostalgia is there for all of these. I guess I would have to say this Yoda, even though I'm pretty bummed that his hip joint's so loose he's just going to fall over, but I guess that's why he's got a cane. Still fond of the sculpt and the look, like the drape and the arm robes that they gave him. Small detail on the belt and the wrinkles in the forehead and in the eyes. Like, he looks like his puppet self. So I'd say this Yoda is still, well, I guess he wasn't my favorite since I lost him on the roof that one time, but still, I've grown more fond of him now. We'll say that. So I would say probably this Yoda, if I had to pick one that was still a favorite. Followed by probably Luke, just because, you always remember your first, right? So yeah, there we got. I'm going to change my camera so that way I'm not just talking to nothing. Or you guys aren't just looking at figures. Okay, so that's really crooked. Oh well. So that was the unboxing. That's what I said, 32 figures. They're all going to be going on this kind of glass little shelving thing that I got up, which was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this unboxing. I was saving it for kind of like a milestone, but I've kind of tapered out at about 300 subscribers at the moment. So if you're a new watcher and you haven't subscribed, please do. I'm trying to get back in the swing of doing some videos. I don't think I'll ever get around to it back to a video a week just because of how work ends up. But I finished moving. I've kind of mostly unpacked and settled in my area. But I don't have as much space devoted to it. So in my old area, I had a whole room I could devote to doing these unboxings, and it was easy to just leave something, come back to it, or quickly like grab like a shot that I might have forgotten to get. And here it's kind of, I'm living in the space that I'm doing these videos in. So it's a little bit more difficult to get them. But I'm still going to try and do at least maybe once every other week kind of thing. We'll see. I'm going to try and maybe start on another video this week and do something. I meant to do a Bad Batch unboxing before the season started. Clearly that didn't happen, but I've got a bunch of backlog stuff that are now kind of in boxes and in my way, so I'd love to still open them. Like, that was the point. I was tempted to just say open everything and get around to it, but I'd still rather do stuff for the channel. So we'll see kind of how the channel's going. So yeah, I wanted to get these out of the way because they were 30 figures taking up a lot of space, and I had a spot devoted to them that I wanted to put them in. And I didn't want to put a bunch of stuff up there and then take it down and then put these figures up whenever I got to, whatever milestone I might have deemed worthy of doing these. I'm sure I'll have something else cool to unbox whenever I get to 400 or 500 or wherever next milestone comes my way. About it. I think the last thing I did was a build unboxing. So the next one I'll do is an action figure unboxing. I may do the Bad Batch because I've just got like the squad. It's not a wave. It's just like every member of the Bad Batch. Or I've also got all the Cantina band members. So I'm kind of flippy-floppy on which one of those I'll do. If there's one you'd rather see, if you'd rather me do the Bad Batch, let me know in the comments. Or if you'd rather me do the Cantina band members, do that in comments as well. Let me know which one you prefer. Because I'm privy to, I'd rather do either of them just because there are a lot of boxes. Because the Cantina band, I think, is 6 figures, and the Bad Batch is down here on my feet, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, also 6 figures. So either way, I'm making more room. Yeah, dang, we're at 2 hours already. So thank you guys for watching and tuning in. I appreciate it. I think we got up to 9 people at some point, which may be a record for me, so that's cool. Appreciate you guys coming in and watching and chatting and not making it so I'm talking to myself. That's always nice. I appreciate the interaction. So yeah, I'll get to something again along the lines now that I've got I'm kind of settled in my space and got some more room to breathe. Can put up my lights and put up my camera and do something. So keep an eye on the channel. Something will come up sooner rather than later. Maybe not this week, but I don't know. I don't want to make any promises. So we'll see. But thank you guys. I appreciate you tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there and happy hunting.